Hello everyone, and how are you all doing today? Today we're going to be attempting another past paper question from the ACCA Performance Management exam. This time we're going to be doing a section C question relating to the topic of profit maximization, market skimming, and penetration pricing. Okay, so it's a commonly tested topic in section C in ACCA in recent sittings. So without further ado, let's get into the question itself. So December 2017, section C, question 31. As always, we'll start with the requirement. So part A, calculate the optimum profit maximizing selling price for a parapane. And so there's two parts to the requirement. Let's break it down. First part, calculate the profit maximizing price. Okay, and the resulting annual profit from which TRCO will make by charging this price. And they've given us the formulas for the demand curve and marginal revenue. Okay, so two parts. We need to calculate the profit maximizing price, and based on that also the maximum profit. So the profit maximizing calculation, there were certain steps that we covered in our videos. Basically, we need to first find the equation of the demand curve, based on which we'll find the equation for marginal revenue. We'll set marginal revenue, MR, is equal to MC, marginal cost. And based on that, we'll do our profit maximizing calculation. We'll find the quantity at which profit is maximized, then the price at which profit is maximized, and based on that, the maximum profit. Okay, so let's start by reading the question. Okay, so the first question, as you can see, is the first paragraph doesn't really have any numbers in it. It's just an introduction. Let's quickly go through it. So TRCO is a pharmaceutical company which researches, develops, and manufactures a wide range of drugs. One of these drugs, parapane, is a pain relief drug for the treatment of headaches, blah blah blah. Until last month, TRCO had a patent on parapane which prevented other companies from manufacturing it. So this information will become relevant when we do our market skimming and penetration pricing analysis in the next part. The patent is now expired. There's several competitors that have already entered the market and are making use of the same active ingredients. TRCO is reviewing its pricing policy in light of the changing market. It has carried out some market research. The research has established that for every $2 decrease in price, demand would be expected to increase by 5,000 batches, with maximum demand for parapane being 1 million batches. Okay, so let's start by structuring our answer. So this is question number 31. As always, just put the question number and question headings to the side in a column so that they're distinguished from the rest of the answer. It helps with the presentation. Okay, so the profit maximum profit calculation had certain steps. What was step one? Step one was we need to find B for the demand curve, right? Which is P is equal to A minus BQ. And B is based on change in price over change in demand, right? So B is equal to change in price over change in demand, and this told us that the research has established for every $2 decrease in price, demand would increase by 5,000 batches. So change in price, $2 decrease minus 2 over 5,000 increase, we get minus 0.0004. Okay. Step 2, find A for the demand curve, right? Okay. And that will be based on the value of P. So far our demand curve currently looks like this. P is equal to A minus 0.0004 Q. Okay, so we can find A by substituting the values of P and Q from the question. Now there's a trick in this question. Generally speaking, they give us two values of P and Q, that at a price of this much the demand is this much, and at a price of this much demand is this much. Here they've done something different. They've said with maximum demand for parapane being 1 million batches. Now I want you guys to think logically. Maximum demand, when would that occur? When the price is the lowest possible, right? The minimum price. What's the lowest possible price we can have? It can't be a negative number. We can't sell something for a negative price, so it'll have to be 0. So they've given us a pair of P and Q that at price 0, quantity demanded is 1 million. So we'll substitute that into our equation over here. So at price is equal to 0, demand quantity demanded is equal to 1 million. Okay, so we'll just mention that, and based on that, let's substitute. So that means that 0 is equal to A minus 0.0004 into 1 million. Okay, and that means that A is equal to 0.0004 into 1 million. Okay, so let's just A is equal to and minus 0.0004 into 1 million. Okay, so A is equal to 400. So our demand curve becomes P is equal to 400 minus 0.0004 Q. Next step number 3, do you remember? Based on the demand curve, we need to find MR based on the demand curve. Right? So they've given the formula as well. MR is equal to A minus 2BQ. So simply based on this, we need to modify B and make it 2B. So MR will become A remains 400 and 2BQ is minus 0.0008 Q. Right? Step 4, the profit maximizing step, set MR is equal to MC. Now MC being our variable cost, so we'll have to find that. Let's move on with the case. It says each batch of paraffin is currently made using the following materials. So they have our material costs here, which are part of variable costs. Okay, then each batch requires 20 minutes of machine time to make, and the variable running costs for the machine time are $6 per hour. So there's those machine costs as well. Fixed overhead cost is expected to be $2 per batch for the period, based on a budgeted production level of 250,000. That's not necessary for the marginal cost calculation, but will be necessary for the profit calculation. Okay, let's continue reading in case there's anything else. Okay, so the skilled workers who have been working on paraffin until now have been moved on to the production of TRCO's new unique product, which costs millions of dollars to develop, and they've obtained a patent for this. No similar drug exists, and while demand levels are unknown, the launch of the drug is eagerly anticipated over the world. Okay, so there are 2 drugs in this question. We need to be careful during an analysis. Which one are they referring to? Okay, agency staff who are completely new to the production of paraffin and cost $18 per hour, so this is where our labor costs come in, will need to be brought in for the production of paraffin. Experience has shown there will be a significant learning curve involved, so we have a learning curve calculation. The first batch of paraffin made using the agency workers will take 5 hours to make. It is believed a learning curve of 80% exists, which is why they've given us B down below in relation to the production of the drug, and will continue until the first 1,000 batches have been completed. Paraffin management has said that any pricing decisions about paraffin should be based on the time it takes to make the 1,000th batch of the drug. So we need to find the time taken for the 1,000th batch for the labor costs. So let's find the cost one by one. Okay. First we have material costs. Material Z is the first material we have, which costs 500 grams at $0.1 per gram. So this will be 500 into 0.1. Okay, then we have material Y, which costs 300 grams at $0.5 per gram, so 150. Okay, then we have labor, which will say refer to working below. Okay, and we'll do that working for the learning curve. Let's just add the machine cost as well. Fixed overhead we don't need to add, like I said. Machine cost requires 20 minutes of machine time. Variable running cost for the machine time are $6 per hour. So machine costs, let's just stretch this out a bit. Machine costs are $6 per hour, and they run for 20 minutes, so an hour has 60 minutes, so 20 over 60, 1/3 of an hour, $2. Okay, and this will be our total cost, total variable cost. Okay, oops, I misspelled it. Okay, so Alt plus, we have our sum here, and we'll make this bold because it will be the important part. Okay, for labor cost, let's do the working. So let's put a heading here. Labor cost working is based on the time for the 1000th batch. So whenever we need to find the time for a particular batch, think back to what we covered in our learning curve videos. What did we say? It'll be time for n batches minus n minus 1 batches. So for the 1000th batch, it'll be the time for 1000 batches less the time for 999 batches. And remember, the learning curve formula is given in the exam, so you can refer to it if you don't remember it. It's y is equal to ax raised to power b. In this case, they've given us b already, which is log of r over log of 2. So we'll use the value they've given us in the paper itself. Okay. So remember, the formula for learning rate, y, is for average time per batch. We need the total time, so we'll need to multiply that average time with the number of batches. So total time for 1000 batches, which will be, let's put in our values, 1000, the number of batches, into y, the average time per batch. So y is equal to a. What is a in this case? The time for the first unit. The first batch will take 5 hours to make. So 5 into ax, so 1000 raised to power b. B being this value. So raised to power minus 0.321928. Okay. So total time for 1000 batches is 540.986. We'll just copy these things down below. We're using the shortcut Control D to just shift the formula down, but we need to amend it a bit since we hard coded the numbers in. So this is for 999 batches. So we'll just replace the thousands by 999. We'll get 540.61. So that's not really much of a difference. So time for the 1000th batch is this minus this, and this is in terms of hours, of course, right? Now we need to be careful. One common mistake students make is they'll take this time, which is the hours, into our cost, but we need a dollar amount, right? It's a cost. So we know that the cost per labor hour is here. Cost is $18 per hour, right? So we'll multiply this by 18. Cost per batch will be this amount into $18, right? Okay, so we end up with 6.6039 something. Okay, so there we have our total variable cost. So we'll set MR is equal to MC, basically 400, therefore 400 minus 0.0008Q is equal to 208.604. Okay, so based on that, step number 5, what was it? Calculate the profit maximizing quantity, right? In this case, we'll redo our formula. It will become minus 0.0008, and you don't need to necessarily show all this working here, but it's good just for the market to make it easier for the market to follow. So it's 208.604 minus 400. Notice it's giving an error because I started the formula with a minus sign. So this can be overcome easily by putting an apostrophe right before that. Okay, then it will let you treat it as text. So Q effectively is equal to 208.604 divided by minus 400 divided by minus 0.00008. A, right? So we've shown how the working went, which is why we have Q is equal to this amount. But again, you don't need to necessarily do this. You can just put this formula here directly. It's up to you, right? The marker won't deduct any marks for that, as long as the working is correct, of course. So Q is equal to 239,245. Okay. So based on that, step 6, calculate the profit maximizing price. So that's the first part of the requirement. Okay. And the profit maximizing price will be done by taking this value of Q and substituting it into the demand curve, which we calculated up here, right? So P is equal to 400 minus 0.0004 into Q, right? We need to link everything, right? Please don't manually key in the numbers like students often do. It's very easy to make a typo in that case. And when you have the number there in Excel, just link the formula, right? Make it easy for yourself rather than having to type everything. So the price is going to be 304.302 at which profit is maximized. Furthermore, if you key in things like 208.604, then you'll, oops, so I did key it in here, right? So I made the mistake as well. Of course, I meant to do that just to demonstrate. Yeah, I'm kidding. But it shouldn't be keyed in, right? So I should have technically linked the formula here. So that way, it doesn't make too much of a difference, but if the numbers are smaller, a few decimals can make a bit of a difference, right? And especially for multiple choice questions. So we should be careful and link the formulas. Any number you've calculated previously, rule of thumb should be, you should link it if it's used in a formula later on, okay? Do not key in the number. Right, so we have the profit maximizing quantity and price. We're done with the first part of the requirement. Now we need to find the maximum profit. So step 7, calculate the maximum profit. Okay, so first we'll calculate the revenue, which will be simply the price multiplied by the quantity at which profit is maximized. Okay, then the variable costs, which will be the quantity we've calculated multiplied by the marginal cost we calculated, right, up here. Okay, this should be a negative number. Okay, then this will give us a contribution, okay, less the fixed costs. Fixed costs we'll need to get from the question. So they gave the information over here. The fixed production overhead cost is expected to be $2 per batch for the period based on a budgeted production level of 250,000 batches. Now again, a common mistake students might make is they'll say, oh, but we produced 239,245 batches, so we'll multiply that by the $2 per batch. No, remember, fixed costs do not vary with the number of units or batches produced, so you'll stick to what the budgeted number of batches was. It's an easy mistake to make, so please be careful. So this will be is equal to minus 250,000 times 2, so 500,000. Okay, that means our profit is let's just format this a bit. Let's just make these numbers accounting based, right? So the format should become, and these format options are available in the exam spreadsheet software as well. Okay, so the profit should be approximately 22,395,278, right, approximately. Okay, so there we have it. There's our calculation. We've done the profit maximizing price. Let's make that bold as well, because that's part of the requirement, and the maximum profit. Okay, so as you can see, the calculation itself is quite straightforward. There's quite a few steps, but like we discussed in the videos, they're very intuitive, and there wasn't really too much complex stuff as long as you knew how to do the learning rate calculation, which I hope you guys do by now, right? If not, you can check out the December 2014 section B question 1 video where we do a question on learning curves for more practice. Okay, let's move on to part B, which is the analysis. Okay, so the calculation was for 12 marks. The analysis will be discuss and recommend whether market penetration or market skimming would be the suitable pricing strategy for TRCO when launching the new anti-malaria drug. Okay, so we need to be careful. They're not talking about parapain, meaning all of this information is not what we're going to be using for our analysis, right? They're talking about the new drug, right, which was somewhere over here, right? All of this information, and we need to discuss, so we need to analyze and then recommend which strategy they should use. So what I would recommend whenever we do this is first we just list down the features which are conducive to market penetration or market skimming strategies, and then we match those features to the case scenario and see which feature, does a product have more features for market penetration or for market skimming, and based on that make our conclusion. Okay, please remember, it's not so much about the conclusion. The marker won't be deducting marks if he thinks of a different conclusion than you do, right? Because oftentimes there's a gray area. As long as you justify your conclusion, you'll get marks for it. But please remember to give the recommendation. Don't be scared of not giving it, because you'll lose marks if you don't give it. Okay, so let's start with the generic stuff. What are the features good for market penetration and market skimming? So let's start with penetration. Market penetration strategy is where we start with a low price and high volume, right? It works well when, and then list the features. So first feature could be the market is elastic, right? There is a long life cycle for the product. Okay, what else? The market has many competitors, which is why you're charging the low price, right? The product is not unique or different, which is why we're having to charge the low price to distinguish ourselves. What other features could we say? Well, it's for 8 marks. If we go by 4 features each, that should be enough, but we can add other features as well if we find them in the case scenario, right? That's a good starting point anyway. So we'll copy this down below and just amend the text for market skimming. So market skimming strategy works where we start with a high price and low volume. Okay, it works well where the market is inelastic, where there's a short life cycle for the product, where the market has many competitors, no, where there are high research and development costs incurred, right? Because we want to recover those costs as soon as possible. The product is unique or different, or branded for that matter, is unique, branded, or different. One more thing that we can add for penetration pricing is that when we want to discourage new entrants into the market, right? Because in market penetration, we originally make a lot of losses, so that discourages new entrants. But in market skimming, it's the opposite. We're making a lot of profit, so we need to have a patent or barriers to entry, so that if everyone sees that we're making profits, they're not able to enter the market and steal from our profits, basically, right? Okay, so those are the features of each. Let's see which features work in our case. So the skilled workers who have been working on parapain until now move to the production of TRCOs new and unique. Okay, so it's already new and unique. So TRCOs new product is unique. So that seems to suggest market skimming, right? So we'll write that down. Okay, after that, it costs millions of dollars to develop. So it cost millions of dollars to develop. So that's also a point for market skimming. TRCO has obtained a patent for it, so that means barriers to entry. We have a patent. TRCO has a patent for it. That's also market skimming. Okay. No other similar drug exists, so it's unique. And whilst the demand levels are unknown, the launch is eagerly anticipated, which is fine. So the product is unique. Once again, this is for market skimming. Okay. And then we have all this data for the learning curve, which I don't think will be necessary. But in any case, there's a very strong argument being made, right? For market skimming, all the points seem to hit that. We can't really calculate the elasticity of the market because we don't have the information. But it doesn't look, ideally we should structure our answer like that with small, short answers, right? They don't usually like that. So let's restructure what we've written down here into a very nice conclusion and recommendation. Okay, so recommendation. We're just gonna put this in a paragraph form. Given the fact that TRCO's new product is unique, they have a patent for it, and it cost them millions of dollars to develop. They should be using the market skimming strategy. And let's explain further. This will allow them to charge a high price and take advantage of this situation where there are no competitors to make very good profit margins. When the patent expires, they can start reducing the price to remain competitive. Okay, so there's our recommendation, and we'll just remove this part. We don't need that. Okay, so we'll be left with our recommendation, and we have the analysis. So market penetration is a strategy where we start with a low price and a high volume. Let's just add some more detail here as well, because it seems really shorthand. Again, if you were out of time, this answer is good, right? It's not like you wouldn't be getting some good marks here. But again, just for overall, it does have a sort of psychological impact if there's a bit more writing. You don't want it to be too verbose, but you don't want it to be too concise like we have it here either. Okay, the aim is to distinguish yourself from competitors by charging a much lower price. This enables you to penetrate the market from the start. Okay, so now we have some more text. Okay, and market skimming, the aim is to have a unique product which you can sell at a high price in order to make a high profit margin. Over time, you reduce the price as competitors start to enter the market. Okay, so there we go. There's our research, there's our analysis, right? It wasn't that hard. So we broke it down, we discussed market penetration and market skimming, and then we recommended it for TRCO that they should go for market skimming, given that they hit most of the features of market skimming rather than penetration pricing. And again, you could, if their features were slightly different, you could have argued the other way as well, but that's not the case here. Okay, so I hope you guys found this beneficial and it improved your confidence for the exam, and I'll see you guys next time.